We're keeping it rolling toward the 2025 NFL Draft. A couple of more draft profiles, scouting reports on two players that could be the next San Francisco 49ers first-round picks at number 11 overall. Seeing them in a lot of mock drafts. We'll get to those scouting reports. Kelvin Banks, Mykel Williams, coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I might be losing my voice. I don't know if I'll make it through this podcast. I don't know what's going on, but it is leaving me somewhat right now. But I hope you guys stick with us and don't leave us, because we need you to subscribe on YouTube or everywhere you listen to your podcast. Love all the everydayers out there that are hanging out with us. And if you're a new listener, we got you covered throughout the draft and the off season and into next season as well. So make sure you're subscribed up everywhere you listen to your podcast, and hit the thumbs up on YouTube if you're there, and let us know you came by. We love hearing from you. And if there's a topic you want, drop it in the comments. Drop it to us at BD Peacock, at Crocky209 on the socials. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59, it's here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Croc. Kelvin Banks, we're going to start there. Offensive tackle, University of Texas, been playing left tackle there. Mel Kiper, very recently mocked him to the San Francisco 49ers at pick number 11. He's been a pretty popular pick in that slot. I'm a big Kiper guy. Love the slick back hair. He's the OG. He's the original. GM's getting mad at him in the 1980s. And he was right. So he's not my go-to these days, but man, I do still love to hear Mel Kiper just go and go and go. He's like a wind-up toy.
It gives good insight. I feel like, guys like that, they have connections throughout the NFL. They talk to people, and maybe sometimes he gets his evaluation wrong, but the intel is probably pretty good.
Yeah, and maybe he's not quite as sharp as he once was, because like he was the guy for a while. It's like, if you want to draft coverage, you got to go to Mel Kiper, because they're the only ones that have it. So love Mel Kiper. He's a Hall of Famer for me. Kelvin Banks Jr. out of the University of Texas. He goes, depending on where you look, I'm interested to see what he weighs in at, because I think he'll be plenty heavy. How tall will he be? Unofficially, 6'4", 320 pounds. Early entry into the draft. Junior, number 78, out of the University of Texas. And this is a tough one to me. I think the last episode, the prospects were easy. To this episode, I think both of these prospects are difficult, Croc. I think the next guy's even more difficult than Kelvin Banks. I liked what I saw from Kelvin Banks, but I was not blown away by Kelvin Banks. And to be honest with you, the way other people have talked about Kelvin Banks, I think I expected more. And I think maybe that's why I was a little bit disappointed. And maybe I'm expecting too much from some of these offensive tackle prospects, because people talk about how athletic they are. And I'm like, man, I've been watching too much Trent Williams, and then before that I was watching Joe Staley. Like, none of these dudes are getting out and running in the running game like those guys, right? So I guess I shouldn't expect that. Maybe the bar is too high as left tackle of the San Francisco 49ers, and he's got some good feet. He's got a nice pass set at times, but there's times when he's lunging. A little body bias for me. He's kind of got a little bit of a bad body thing going on. Then when he gets out on the move, sometimes like, okay, gets to where he needs to go. But then sometimes like, hey, he looks like he just does not move that well. And he moves fine, but he's not like everyone says how athletic he is. I'm like, he's fine. He's okay. I don't know if I'm fighting and clawing and trading and scrapping to get him at pick number 11. I think he'll be a nice player. He wins a lot more than he loses. He's a good football player. Am I like, oh my God, you got to draft Kelvin Banks Jr. at pick number 11, 49ers. He is the rock at left tackle to replace Trent Williams in the future. I don't know if I necessarily saw that.
We almost had some identical words here. And if you go back, it'll sounded a lot like what I'm about to say right now. But I said, it doesn't look like he moves very well. That was one of the first things I said. You just kind of echoed those same sentiments. But I went on to say, but for some reason in space, he looks good and he makes contact with guys at the second level. And I was kind of shocked to see that, because just looking at him, and even as he's moving, even as he's getting into his pass set, even as he's run blocking, he just doesn't look like a great mover. But again, in space, he looks like a much better athlete.
He gets one of the reasons I really loved Will Campbell, and spoiler, I would have Will Campbell ahead of Kelvin Banks right now as far as film grades go. Will Campbell's anchor, the way he was always balanced and under control, his body, it felt like. Kelvin Banks, he would get kind of on his toes a little bit and get a little bit of lean a little bit too much, get off balance sometimes. But he won so much, and he's a really good player, and I see why people like him a lot. I would probably put him in the mid to late first round range rather than the mid to early. It's nitpicking a little bit there, and I like him, and I think he can stick a tackle. And even though he's not that tall, and he might come in even under 6'4", I'm not sure, because he does have a little bit of a guard build where he's going to widen the hips and maybe not that tall, but I think he's got requisite arm length, which is obviously huge, and that's more important than how tall you are is how long your arms are. We're going to talk about arm length in a second with Mykel Williams, but. Really good prospect, wins a lot. I'm not fighting to go get him. And I was a little bit surprised how much everyone's raved about him. And I haven't heard a lot of people say like, yeah, okay, athletic, but I mean, he's not quite a dancing bear out there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I watched the wrong games, because I put on the tape. I saw him against Mykel Williams. It's actually one of Mykel Williams' best games that I saw from him was against Kelvin Banks. He actually was a lot more productive, and that's a big problem for Mykel Williams because he hasn't been that productive. Kelvin Banks, where you at on him? What kind of grade would you give him overall?
You talked about it doesn't matter what game you watch. And I watched one game where I thought he put some really good things on film. And then somehow I stumbled across a video. It's between himself and Austin Booker out of Kansas. And it's like a minute and a half long. And it's just every pass snap between those two guys. Booker, the way he annihilated Kelvin Banks, you would think that this is a guy that's supposed to be a top 10 pick or something like. I mean, he's hitting him with speed. He's hitting him with speed. The power. Banks is falling all over the place. He's getting him spin moves and come back inside. Like if you just watch that, it was he split him on a double team. That was not a good game for Banks. So I watched a few games leading up to recording this podcast. I guess it may just depend on which one you watch, and if that's all you watch, then you'll like that. Or if you're just looking for all the positives, then you'll like them as well, because there are some good things I do that think jumps out, but it can get ugly real fast. And with him, when it's ugly, it's really ugly.
Speaking of mock drafts, Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft was very interesting that he dropped this week. And first of all, because he didn't have a quarterback going number 1 overall, he had Abdul Carter. Which was disappointing, because I'm kind of like hoping, some of these top guys, they could slide down a little bit. They get past pick 4, 5, 6. Maybe the Niners could even trade up to get, like, say, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, someone like that. And we'll have to do scouting reports on those guys, even if we believe they'll be gone before the 49ers pick, because we got to stack our board. Could they get to pick 8 where the Niners could move up and get them? Daniel Jeremiah had Abdul Carter going number 1 overall. And I think he had Travis Hunter going number 2 overall. So then Cam Ward went number 3 overall. And I believe he had Will Campbell going like number 4. So Daniel Jeremiah saw what we saw with Will Campbell. And clearly, I think we both have Will Campbell as our top offensive tackle prospect that we've seen so far. And if he could just get that minimum level of arm length, then I'm good. I'm totally good there with him. Kelvin Banks probably does have the arm length. He could probably play guard as well, and that's a really consistent thing with all of the offensive line prospects in this draft. Like almost all of them are like, maybe better guard in the NFL. I don't want to draft the guy at number 11 and say, maybe a better guard. Like if you're like Quentin Nelson, right? You're like, oh, this guy is going to be the best offensive lineman in the NFL, but he's a guard, not a tackle. I'm okay with that. Like if you're drafting a Hall of Fame guy at number 11, okay. But if you're like, he's tackle, but maybe probably a guard, like 11 overall. Man, DeMarcus Ware went 11. J.J. Watt went 11. I'm greedy at 11 right now. So that's why I'm a little bit out on Kelvin Banks there, as not so much as that he's not worth it. He could go there. I think he'd be a fine pick. He's a good player, but I'm not like pounding the table like Kelvin Banks is the guy. And then if you start looking at guards and you start comparing, okay, well, if he's playing inside, I kind of even like Mimbo better as a guard than Kelvin Banks potentially if you're projecting.
Did you see Mimbo's measurements today? I was tagging you in it.
Oh, I did not see that. Was it hit the Senior Bowl?
Yeah.
What was it?
So his height was just shy of 6'4". His weight was like 320 something or along
Okay.
those lines. Matter of fact, let me not guess. Let
Yeah.
me go straight to it.
While you do that,
So-
another prospect that I was looking at, Mike Green, who's a dynamic edge rusher, led the nation in sacks. He actually because there were some numbers put out there that actually weren't the actual numbers a few days ago. So his real height weight was over 6'3", and it was 251, which was a huge win for him. Now the arm length wasn't quite there, 32 something. But I think it was a good day for Mike Green too, because the first numbers I saw was like 230 pounds, and that's a very different proposition. So good day for him. What was the measurements for Mimbo? And by the way, Daniel Jeremiah had Mimbo going again to the 49ers. So now Jeremiah and Brugler both have had Mimbo at 11 going to the Niners.
So Mimbo, 6'3", and it's like 3 and 6, whatever, eighths or something like that. So,
Yeah.
so basically, really a
3/4.
shade under
Yeah.
6'4", 332 pounds, which is why maybe he looked a little bit more like a guard to us.
Mhm.
But 34-inch arm length on the dot, 3400.
Oh, that's money right there. That's millions of dollars he just made by getting to 34 on that arm length. That's huge, man. If you want to stay tackle. Now he played right tackle in college. Interesting Mimbo. Okay. And next I want to get your opinions on stacking it. So we both like Will Campbell out of LSU more. Let's compare Banks, Mimbo. Now those are the most three common names that are in that range of the draft at offensive tackle. Kind of stack those three guys, and then let's talk defensive line. Let's talk edge rushers. Let's talk Mykel Williams out of Georgia as well. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Super Bowl 59's here. So one game, two teams. That's it. Endless possibilities. And I know a lot of 49ers fans listening to this show probably don't like the two teams that are playing in the Super Bowl, but there's no better way to make every play more exciting and give you some actual rooting interest in the game than FanDuel Sportsbook, because whether it's predicting the first touchdown of the game or calling the MVP or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. So many Super Bowl props that you can find at FanDuel. Tons of draft props as well that are super fun at FanDuel. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, no matter if you like the teams or not, and it's super easy to navigate on the app. Plus, knowing you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. That's the icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official Super Bowl partner. Banks versus Mimbo. Where you at?
I think I like Mimbo.
I think
A
I
little bit
do
more than
too,
Banks.
man. Yeah. I love that he's 330. I mean, he's a little heavy, but that just means he's got knockback. He's got power, and he's got some athleticism. I think he was smoother mover to me, I think, than Kelvin Banks. And even though the weight is high, him being a hair under 6'4", 34-inch arms, I think is fine. That matches up well with who's our dude from Washington, the left tackle. He's a little bit short, got drafted by the Steelers in the first round. So and so that's bigger than him. And arm length is makes you believe he could play tackle. He didn't play on the left side, which I don't like as much. But if you're projecting to guard, you're projecting to right tackle. Clearly, Mimbo, I think I'd probably just take, but it's close. Like those guys are really close. I think we're probably gonna have to split some hairs and do another cluster buster episode with some of these offensive linemen and dive even deeper into the tape. But right now, I'd probably lean a hair toward Mimbo, but it's really close with these two guys. As wide and as big as Mimbo was, I feel like he just wore the weight better for me, and that's probably enough. I feel bad, a little body bias. Hopefully, Kelvin Banks not listening to this and be like, man, I don't look that bad. I don't know, something about like his hips and the feet like were pointing the wrong direction. You know, when you see those guys, you're like, that guy just doesn't look at something about Banks, man. I don't know. Maybe and if I watched the wrong game, so let me know and where this athleticism really shines for Banks. I would love to hear it if someone's really into Banks. I got to talk to Chapman. He's biased though. He's a Texas guy. He's a Texas fan, so that's why he likes Kelvin Banks, I think, so much.
Yeah, like him, don't love him, and definitely would go with Mimbo over him.
First round guy though, Banks, just not 11 to me. It just feels a little high. You would hope that I think someone with
he would have been a good guy for last year when the 49ers were picking at 31.
Right, yeah, and be like, man, I hope Kelvin Banks can get there. I hope Mimbo can get there, right? But man, 11, different proposition. Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Looks the part, man. He's the get off the bus first guy. He's got it's the opposite body bias here with him, Croc. He is 6'5", 270 pounds, reportedly 35-inch arm length. My guy, Kyle Krabs, the host of Locked On NFL Scouting, the host of Locked On Dolphins, deep into the draft stuff. He works for 33rd Team as well, doing their draft profiles. His player comp for Mykel Williams, Aldon Smith. And I'm like, God dang, if you... Okay, I'm going to say this, and it's a little hot takey here. Mykel Williams is going to get someone fired, dude. Because he looks the part.
I saw more of that than I saw Aldon Smith.
He's not a good enough football player yet. But you see some flashes and you're like, dude, he clearly has all this talent. Kind of reminds me more of Trayvon Walker, I think, from Georgia just a couple of years ago, who actually Trent Baalke, Aldon Smith, long arms. He drafted him number 1, even over Aiden Hutchinson. Mykel Williams is one of those guys. You draft him ahead of Mason Graham, or you draft him ahead of Abdul Carter, and we'll see he runs at the combine. But man, with Mykel Williams, I got to be honest, Croc, I just didn't see it. I don't think I could give my stamp of approval at number 11 for any of these guys. And I could understand why they would go there, but I'm just not fired up about Kelvin Banks or Mykel Williams at pick 11 right now. Just the production just was not there for Mykel Williams.
The one thing I did like with Mykel Williams is that he was versatile. And you watch him line up all over the defensive line, whether it's at 3 tech, you watch him at edge, you watch him at edge with his hand in the dirt, you see him stand up as more of an outside linebacker. So the versatility I thought was good. I thought he had good hands. I thought he had good striking power, but there wasn't a lot more to his game. And if you do like a quick search on X, aka Twitter, you'll see a lot of people that are really high on him. But I don't think I'm as high on him unless you expect him to be like Jared Verse to the Rams. I think it's kind of like a poor man's Jared Verse, where he wants to win with more with power than he does with any kind of real plan or finesse.
Yeah, no plan. And that's kind of it. Like he almost, when he wins, it's almost by accident, just because he's big and has these long arms, pushes the offensive tackle away a little bit. And it's like, okay, here we go. And then goes and makes a play. So maybe it's a better plan. Some refinement could be there, and man, he could blow up absolutely. And I get that the traits are there, and we'll see how he runs. But I almost want him to run really, really bad, so that he doesn't end up with the 49. I just feel like and then so I went a little deeper down the rabbit hole. I was like, okay, what is his win rates? Because he's got a teammate, and every time I watch Georgia, his teammate, who's an off-ball linebacker who rushes the passer half as much, wins twice as often, right? I'm talking about Jalen Walker. And Jalen Walker's win rate as a pass rusher is like 20-something%. It's top 5, I think, in this draft class. Mykel Williams is like 10%. And it is like, I think in college football this year, he was like not even in the top 100 of pass rush win rate. And I was like, exactly, that's what I saw on tape. He does not win enough, even though he's a monster. And so maybe he'll figure it out. But man, that's why I say he's total boomer bust. He's the type of prospect. Maybe he does become Aldon Smith. I wouldn't expect it based off the tape that I've seen. And again, let me know if I'm watching the wrong games. And maybe his best game was against Kelvin Banks. He was productive in that game, but still just down to down. No plan. It's like, what are you doing? Like with Jared Verse, you saw that bull rush, and he's got power, and he could have a better bull rush, but it's not there. And worries me. Mykel Williams, boomer bust, scares the death out of me at pick 11. Got to be honest.
I think what's going to happen is people are going to search up his highlights, and when you match his highlights with his measurables, you're going to think you're getting a great football player. But ultimately, like from a down to down basis, that it wasn't. I didn't see the ability flash enough. And maybe there's just something with Georgia with how they use some of their guys, especially the interior defensive linemen, to where guys aren't getting a bunch of sacks. I mean, they're going really high in drafts because they're kind of freak shows.
Right.
But from the standpoint of just having, a bunch of sacks, even like Jordan Davis, he was just such a freak. So it was easy to get guys like that.
Yeah, and Georgia keeps pumping out these guys that are obviously insane athletes, and they're all 5-star recruits. Mykel Williams is a 5-star recruit out of the state of Georgia. But they all play different positions when they get to the NFL. So that might be part of it too, because he's playing, almost like a 5 technique, and he's kind of playing a little bit of interior. He's clearly going to be an end, I think, in the NFL just because of his body type and his height and weight and length. He'll be used as a sort of a 4-3 traditional defensive end, I think, in the NFL. But maybe someone that a team moves inside and does some things like that, because he showed he's a powerful guy too. So it's like when I say boom or bust, he'll probably be useful in a run defending kind of way, but like Javon Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas. I worry that he would end up in that lineage of player that you just never see it. You think, oh man, here we go. Look at this play. Wait till next year, another offseason. And it's just like, here's a big play here. And then a lot of just like, he's just kind of out there. So apologies to the Banks family and the Williams family. These guys. And again, I'm looking at it as through the lens of a greedy human being that wants a monster, a stinking future Hall of Famer at pick 11. These guys are first rounders, but we're nitpicking here. So we're talking about drafting them pick number 11 overall for the 49ers. And even being so excited about these guys that are like, man, maybe move up to 8, make sure he's there. That kind of prospect is what I want for the 49ers. Not a guy that's like, he's good, I guess he's fine. And then you get a starter for a while, and like Mike McGlinchey, Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw. Niners can't have any more of those types of first round picks.
McGlinchey, I think we gotta give him a little bit more credit. He started every game that he was able to play for the 49ers.
Yeah, he was fine. And then he didn't get a second contract. I want more than that with this pick. You know what I mean? Like, he was good. He wasn't a miss necessarily, and got a nice contract from a different team. But again, I'm greedy. I want more than that. If you're telling me Mike McGlinchey part 2 at pick 11, I say swipe. Wait, I don't know which direction to swipe. Swipe whatever way is the bad way. Give me the next prospect. That's what I would say to that.
I've always said that people would feel a lot more comfortable about Mike McGlinchey and what you got from him if he were drafted in the second round as opposed to number 9 overall.
100%, no doubt. Absolutely. Solomon Thomas, same exact thing. But big pick for the San Francisco 49ers. They need a impact player. They need a difference-making player up front. Kelvin Banks Jr., Mykel Williams. Let us know what you think. Next, I want to talk about the 49ers coaching staff. Pat McAfee loves Brant Boyer, the special teams coordinator for the 49ers. And you know who's not going to be special teams coordinator or defensive coordinator or any kind of coach at all for the San Francisco 49ers? Nick Sorensen. He's got a new job as well. We'll get to that next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs. And as a small business owner, your work does not end at 5 o'clock. And your business is always on your mind. So that means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And when you post that job, LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, Croc. What does your brother think about Nick Sorensen? Croc's brother, by the way, if you don't know, a Cowboys fan. I don't know how a Cowboys fan and a 49ers fan grow up together in the same household. I also don't know how a 49ers fan becomes a Lakers fan like Eric Crocker, but there's some unique folks out there in the 209. They do it differently out there. Nick Sorensen is going to be not a defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator for Brian Schottenheimer's Dallas Cowboys. Matt Eberflus coming on as defensive coordinator, and they are getting crushed on the internet, Croc, for these hires, almost so much that I almost want to defend it. It's like you never want to defend the Dallas Cowboys, but man, people universally hate these hires for the Cowboys. Nick Sorensen, now special teams coordinator. He crossed paths with Schottenheimer with the Jaguars in that 1 year when Sorenson was a special teams coordinator there. So that's the connection. There's always a connection when it comes to coaching hires.
Now, I haven't confirmed this, but to hear I think about the Schottenheimer was he was the offensive coordinator but didn't call plays.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
that's true. That's one of the bigger gripes that I know my people have with it, my people that are Cowboy fans. Now, my rebuttal to that is there's some coaches who are more fit to be a CEO, head coach. Maybe he brings someone in that has a similar philosophy and allows him to call the plays so that he can delegate and do everything else that needs to be done. So I don't think too much of that. But also there's Mike McDaniel with the 49ers. He was not calling plays, but he was the offensive coordinator when somewhere else called plays and had some level of success with revitalizing the career of Tua Tagovailoa. So I guess there's a couple different ways to look at that.
Pat McAfee loves the Brant Boyer hire for the San Francisco 49ers. Him, a special teams guy himself, former NFL punter. He says that Brant Boyer is a stud. And he said, first of all, people are going to love playing for him because he used to be a special teamer. Like, that's what he did. He played in the NFL. He was an old school, as McAfee said, he was a CTE era wedge buster. Like, that was who he was. So, like, he understands how to go down and cover a kick. And so that's awesome. And their kicking games have been strong. Special teams have been strong. They'll throw in some fake punts every now and again with the New York Jets. According to DVOA, we talked about this on yesterday's pod. It was actually recorded earlier today, but top 5 in special teams DVOA the last couple of years, and 9-year, well-respected special teams coordinator for the Jets, and obviously gets the stamp of approval from Robert Saleh. So starts to make you feel really good about that hire. 49ers getting Robert Saleh back, and two of the biggest problems. I don't know how many wins you tack on to the 49ers if you just have a better special teams and defensive coordinator. But, I mean, it's pretty impactful if the 49ers don't even do anything else and roll back the same exact team. On paper, at least, you feel like they're going to be a better football team.
Well, it feels like that, especially with these two, coordinators that they just hired. But, I mean, the biggest thing is still, we talked about on the last episode, it's not always about the X's and O's. It's a lot about the Jimmys and Joes. And are the 49ers going to address and make special teams unit and make sure that they bring the right guys in there to have impactful plays on it? I mean, that's going to be a big thing that I look into as far as like that unit. They kind of cost the 49ers some games, and there's a couple positions there that the 49ers are hurting at. That, I mean, the kicker, the punter.
You got to. I mean, Wishnowski's fine. They're not going to do anything with punter unless they think his contract is starting to get a little bit too big, because they didn't give him a contract. Although punters still don't make that much. It's kind of like the use check fullback thing. Oh, he's the most expensive fullback in the NFL. And it's like, well, it's still only like $5 million a year or something like that. What do you do with Moody? You have to bring in competition, but you can't really kick him to the curb either. And if you don't kick him to the curb, you probably don't bring in that serious of competition. So it almost will be a sham competition, and it's almost still going to be Moody no matter what in that case, unless he just completely falls on his face.
When I look at third-round picks, I think at a certain point you can go, right? We saw that with Trey Sermon, Ty Davis Price. 49ers weren't, hell-bent on keeping those guys a part of the 49ers. So I definitely think that they bring some kicking competition in for Moody.
Yeah, Latu didn't even make it into year 2 as a third-round player. Or Sermon. Was Sermon – wait.
Sermon was the very next year, but he didn't make it into the new year. So he was on the Niners 2 years.
Okay, 2 seasons. Cam Latu only got 1 season. Yeah, man. Dude, and I keep talking about like, oh, man, someone that you'd want to trade up for. Dude, that late third-round comp pick, dude, trade it away. Like, Niners are not good there. If that gets you into a different tier of player in the first round, if you can go from 11 to 8 and give up pick 101, just do it, man. Why not? Or go a completely different direction. With that 101 pick. It's cursed. And the 49ers have done so well getting all these third-round picks and comp picks, and they keep missing on them. Will Campbell won. I'm looking at our big board right now, Croc. Will Campbell, of all the players we've done deep dives on, is the number 1 graded player on our board. Walter Nolan's a guy we liked a lot. We got Mimbo up there. We got James Pierce up there. We got now Mykel Williams, and we got Kelvin Banks up there. An interesting group of names. And I think right now there's one clear winner. It's Will Campbell. Of those people, we would want to draft at 11. And to be honest with you, I don't think any of those guys gets down to pick 43, even though Walter Nolan, the reason we did him first is because he was in Brugler's mock draft for the 49ers in the second round. I don't think he gets there. And in fact, he might even be number 2 on the list.
Well, Campbell, that's definitely my guy. And I'm still trying to figure out, do I like him as much because he's one of the first few guys? Are there guys that are potentially going to be better than him, or do they see more athleticism? But yeah, he was definitely my guy from the moment I cut on the film. So
yeah, absolutely. It was an easy one for me. And we both, to be honest with you, the tape says so much, Croc. I think the place where you miss on prospects is the wiring. Are they going to put in the work? There's injuries. There's a lot of weird things that can happen. You end up on the wrong team, wrong vibe, wrong locker room, wrong scheme, whatever it is. The tape evaluation is not that hard. If you're missing on that, if you're missing on the tape evaluation of how good a player is consistently, you shouldn't have that job in the NFL, because I think the tape says so much. And it's why we don't talk about it on purpose, because we don't want to color each other's opinions of it. We watch guys and we come out, we have nearly the same opinions almost every time. It's rare when we really feel differently about a prospect that we watch.
I'm still trying to. Hey, smart.
You all right, dude?
Oh yeah, you might have to pause it.
Okay.
Man, I've been having a headache.
All right, that is Kelvin Banks. That is Mykel Williams. We're going to continue to build our big board as the 49ers get ready for the 2025 NFL Draft. What prospect do you want next? Let us know. Make sure you subbed up, and we'll talk to you tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.